Welcome to Ms. Parb's Flipped Classroom. In this lesson we're going to be talking about using linear models. The objective is to determine the correlation, trend line, and line of best fit for a scatter plot and use that information to make predictions. A scatter plot relates two sets of data by plotting the data as ordered pairs, and a correlation indicates the strength of the relationship between the two data sets. Here we see the different types of correlation that you can have. This has a negative slope. All of these points are close to the line, so this is a strong negative correlation. The slope is negative, but the points are farther away from the line, so this is a weak negative correlation. And in this graph, the points are all over the place and it's no correlation. In this one, our slope is positive. The points are kind of far away from the line, so it's a weak positive correlation. And in this one, positive slope, the points are closer to the line, and this is a strong positive correlation. These lines that we have drawn that come closest to the most number of points are called trend lines. And a trend line is a line that approximates the relationship between the variables. You can use 2 points on the trend line to write the equation of the line and make predictions. In this example, we have the year 1940, 50, 60, 70, 80, and 1990, and the median home price for the corresponding year. This would be our X value, this would be our Y. We don't want to use 1940 as our X data, so we're going to make this 0. This is our beginning point, year 0. 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, 40 years later, and 50 years later. So the points that we would actually plot would be 0, 23,100, 10, 40,100, and so on. The question that we want to answer with this data is, what will the median price be in 2020? And the steps that we need to follow are to make our scatter plot, draw the trend line, determine the slope, write the equation, and use the equation to make our prediction. On this graph you can see here are the number of years since 1940, the 0 through 60 that we were talking about. Here are the median home prices. So we have our 0, 23,100, 10, 40,100, 20, 58,100. You notice that these points are close to a straight line, but they don't all fall on the line. That's why this is called a scatter plot, because the points are scattered. The X that I placed here and here are where our trend line is on an exact point. So we have the point 10, 40,100, and here we have the point 55, 110,000. And these 2 points are what we're going to use to find our slope. Notice this point is not in our data set. We get this point because it is on the trend line, not because it was in the data set. So using these 2 points, we find the slope, which is 1,556. We use the point slope form of the equation to find the equation. So we have y minus, I'm using this point, 40,000 equals the slope times x minus 10. Distribute your 1,556, add 40,000 to both sides, and you get the equation y equals 1,556x plus 24,440. To answer our question, we've done all of this. We have our scatter plot, we have our trend line, we found the slope, and we wrote the equation. To make our prediction, we know that 2020 is 80 years after 1940, so we're going to use x equals 80. So we go back to the equation that we just determined, and in place of x, we're going to put the 80 for the year 2020. Do 1,556 times 80 plus 24,440, and we find that the predicted price of a home in 2020 would be $149,000. Okay, this is how you would do this by hand. You can also do the same thing on your calculator. And I want you to make sure that you understand how to do this on the calculator. So if after you've looked over this you still have any questions at all about your calculator, be sure you ask me in class to show you, because you will save yourself a lot of time if you learn how to do this on a calculator. Page 93 has some instructions. They're not super complete, so like I said, ask me if you have questions. The trend line was the line that we drew on the previous slide. The line of best fit is the same thing, except the calculator is going to determine it, and it's going to use all of the points to find this line. So this would be more accurate with the calculator. Using your stat button, which is short for statistics, you would go to your stat button, then go to edit and enter, and you would enter for L1, you would enter your X values, and then for L2, which is list 2, you would enter your Y values. And then once you have your X and Y values in your list, you would go back to your stat buttons, go over to calculate, go down to linear regression, and use your L1 and L2 to determine the line of best fit. So you would hit stat, calculate, linear regression, enter, enter, and this is what you would see. Your calculator would show you y equals ax plus b to show you the form of the equation. It would tell you the value of a, the value of b, and it should give you the r squared and r values. If it doesn't, be sure you ask me to help you get that set up. The reason you want to know the r value is the closer this value is right here to either 1 or -1, the better the line fits our data. So you want to have this diagnostic on to see how well your line of best fit fits your data. Going back to the problem that we just did, we now know that from the calculator the equation is y equals a is your slope, it's right there by x, so 1,411x plus, here's your b, 25,114. We're going to plug in 80 again because it's 80 years from 1940 to 2020, and we're going to do this calculation again. And this time we get that the predicted cost of a home in 2020 would be $138,000.